Hello everybody, welcome back to another Shadowverse Worlds Beyond video, and a happy new year to anyone watching. And this time around, we are going to cover 7 different decks on 7 different crafts. Of course, every single deck is gonna be featuring new cards from the new expansion, Blossoming Fate. Now, I understand not every single craft got a new archetype, but I did try my best to cover every single new archetype that they added to the game, and hopefully you guys find a deck that you might want to try, or you already watch some gameplay of it, you think that it's really nice, and you want to see like maybe a template that I made, or like a template of like an archetype of the deck that you like from the new set. So yeah, let's get right into it. First off, we have Temple Forest. Alright, so Temple Forest. Alright, so first off, I'm gonna say this once because like this is gonna be like a thing for a lot of cards in like the current set. The World of Games card is really good. If your deck can like use this effectively, or your deck is just in need of card draw and you can use this effectively, I suggest putting it in your deck. It's really good. It's like 1 mana draw 2, and it makes it so that decks that didn't have a turn 1 does have a turn 1. So in my eyes, this is basically free, because typically you won't even have a turn 1 play in the first place. Now, speaking of not having a turn 1 play in the first place, this monster literature, 1 mana 1/1, right? And if there's another base cost allied from the field, give this +1/+1. Now, this is mistranslated. This is actually mistranslated. I know. Alright, I'm gonna be the snitch for this, alright? The fanfare effect is actually 1 base cost card on the field. Alright? So even if the enemy, let's say the enemy has World of Games, or the enemy has even an Earthright Sigil on the board, because that's considered 1 like play point cost, right? Monster literature will become a 2/2. Alright? I don't know why it works like that. I don't know if it's a bug. I don't know if it's a mistranslation. I think it's just a mistranslation. But yeah, this card is really valuable because of that. Also because a lot of people suddenly have a turn 1 play. So like when they printed a card like this, it makes sense. So 1 mana 2/2. Right? If you're going second, it's a 1 mana 2/2. So yeah, really good card. Alright? You're gonna see this in a decent amount of decks. So yeah. Moving on. Temple Forest, this is the version that I like to play, right? If you want to play Amatas, I suggest adding in, making space for Fairy Tamer, but you're gonna be a little thin, like on your like a little thin on your consistent curve if you do that. And Amatas is kind of like a dead card, right? I like running 3 Titanias and 3 Arias, because like getting one of these squares is really important. And you might say, yo, Nero, what happens if like I get like, you know, if I draw 3 Titanias, or I get like 2 Arias in the hand? Those are kind of like dead cards, right? Well, first off, Titania like is gonna be a hard thing to it's gonna be a hard thing to just shrug off as a bad duplicate draw, because there's a lot of intimidates this patch because of Dragon. So you'll always find a use for Titania. And if you do run into that problem against a different matchup, well, you can just discard your hand. And this is where Wolfrod comes in. One of my favorite cards in Forest. And since a lot of people are playing Sword and Dragon, stealing their cards is actually really high value. Maybe you can get a Garyu, maybe you can get like what, like a Zirconia, or like cards that don't even need an evo, like Unkei, right? Maybe you can get a Chariot from this. Like last time I played Wolfrod, I actually got Orcus, like 2 Orcuses from a Portalcraft player. So I was like, damn, this card is really legit in terms of the potential that it can give you, because like first off, your opponent probably doesn't know what to play around, right? Like they could just like guess the worst outcome, and typically the lines that you form is very dynamic, so every game feels kind of different. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and Wolfrod himself is just a lot of stats on the board for very cheap. And since you play a lot of fairies, he's probably gonna be like a 5/5, a 6/6, a 7/7, like when you evolve it, or when you just like have a lot of fairies due to like Titania curse existing, right? Miroku, like I said, one of the best like cards they printed in Forest. Turn gives them a very flexible turn tree. That's not a dead draw in the late game. And yeah, like your game plan is basically the same old as Temple Forest, but right now you have a lot. You have better tools. You have better curves. It feels nice, and you don't run out of ammo because this card exists, this card exists, and this card exists. So yeah. Another thing that we added to the deck is Spirited Skipper, and this could potentially give you 6 like fairies, right? 6 fairies, and if you super evolve, gives them Bane. And the good thing about that is you can do stuff like kill like a really big board, let's say the Abyss board, the Congregant board that Force like has a lot of problems dealing with, like especially Temple Forest. Suddenly you have a solution for board states like that. Ether boards, Havencraft, suddenly you have solutions for that. So yeah, like Temple Forest is not that bad of a deck right now. So try it out. Alright, so moving on. This time we have Dragon. Right? This time I went with an aggro version, and it's because everybody's playing ramp. I know, like ramp has more of the new cards, right? But the aggro list actually has a decent amount of new cards as well. You have the, of course, the World of Games. You have the Literature, right? Like I said, it's a really good card. This too, right? Jellyfish Dancer is a new card. Slot, Yube, right? And the reason why I like going aggro is not just so I could be a different archetype from Dragon. It's because it actually kind of punishes the Ramp Dragon playstyle, because they have a dead turn 3. Their turn 5 is not strong or wide, right? Unless they have a Merman, right? So this is the perfect deck in my opinion to punish it. So let me explain some stuff as we go. Yube, right? Like there's a lot of text, right? But I'll simplify it. Basically, if you evolve Yube, right? Like you get this crest, and every single time a marine follower attacks, they gain one, they gain 1 attack. And if a marine follower attacks, you also get 1 copy of Megalorca in your hand. So what does that mean? You get infinite value because this is an infinite quest, and it stays for the rest of the match. And if you get to hit face with a marine follower, well, that's +1 damage. So it's perfect for an aggro playstyle. Now, you might be saying, yo, Nero, how am I gonna hit the face with a marine follower? Well, in case you forgot, fan of Otohime. Alright? Otohime's bodyguard is Storm, and it is a marine. Right? A Storm, a Ward, and a marine. So you can literally do this thing where if once you get the crest, you keep hitting the face with Otohime, it's gonna be 3 damage. And if you tech in like that 1 mana amulet blade, you can even go up to 4 damage per turn without evolving. So that's kind of insane. Alright? So I added Ivory Dragoon for more consistency on the turn 1 play. Right? It's also just a good card to draw like when you're in overflow, so since you get to top deck more cards, since a lot of your cards will probably go face. Right? Like a Slot can deal damage to the face, and also be like a tempo clear, right? To protect your board that you're building. And Shakdoh. Now, you might be saying that, oh, this is such an old card, why are you using this? Well, this is more so because of the current like state of ladder, right? Since there's a bunch of intimidates, right? And you also want an answer for stuff like Anengrea, stuff like Zwei, right? Shakdoh will be able to answer board states like that. So that's really nice, right? Also, it's a 2 mana 2/2, so it's not even a bad like card to play like on curve. Let's say there's nothing happening and you just want to play 2 mana 2/2 on turn 2. Yeah, it's not a bad card. All right. So yeah, moving on. We also have like 1 copy of Warrior of the Deep, and typically this is just for situations where, oh, they warded up and you need to deal 7 damage to finish the game. Warrior of the Deep will do 7 damage, like because you're probably gonna super evolve this, So yeah, so it's the same damage as Super Evolving Odin, but yeah, this is literally to just prevent them from walling you off with 2+ wards, right? And you might be wondering, yo, there's no turn 4 play. Where's the Marion? Right? Where's the Dancho? Where's the the Grand Ninjita? That's Dancho. Right? So Jellyfish Dancer, another like besides playing multiple turn 2, like multiple 2 cost cards, you can just play Jellyfish Dancer. So Jellyfish Dancer gives you a Mega Lorca, which means that you get to play 2 cards in one turn, and Jellyfish Dancer becomes a Bane. So that's really nice as well for tempo, for like building a board leading up to Yube, or like leading up to a Merman, right? Anything that sticks to the board, right? Like if they need to use all their resources for it, or they might, if they end up with an empty board trying to clear your board that you build up in the early game, suddenly you get to hit the face with Forte. And if they committed too much to clearing your board in the early game, well, there might be a good chance that they don't have a solution for it. And even if they have a solution for it, if they didn't ward up, you get to punish them really hard and like kill them from Forte Odin into Warrior of Deep, or Forte into Odin, or like just Forte into like, I don't know, Otohime Super Evolve, because Otohime is probably gonna do like 6 damage, right? It's gonna do 6 damage if you Super Evolve it because you have the Yubi Crest. So yeah, there's a lot of like base burst potential with this deck. And like if you just want to win the mirror match, you know, if you're like me and you're like, yo, if I'm gonna play dragon, I don't want to lose to another dragon, this is one of the ways you can do it. So yeah, just be careful of course, getting Giga cleared by stuff like Galmew and also Phylene Evolve if they manage to rush their overflow. So yeah, really fun deck, very easy as well. So if you're a new player, maybe you want to try that out. All right, time for Sword, my main. All right, so I decided to go with Evo Sword this time around because, you know, it's just my favorite archetype, and I think that the cards that they added actually fit Sword really, really, Evo Sword specifically, really, really well. So first off, we have the Serenity Shield, right? It summons like up to 4 knights if you enhance for it. So what is this good for? It's good with comboing with Zirconia because it's gonna be really hard. If you don't have AoE, you're probably not clearing this. Like, I can imagine if Evo Sword becomes meta in the future, people might tech around this card just because it's really strong into a Zirconia. And not only that, this card is also really convenient to play with Seophon. Because typically, when you look at your deck, you're like, okay, the only cards that you would want to play with the Seophon SBA, especially like just the normal SBA want to juice up the second Seophon, right? Is what? Like Zeta Bea, which is like 2 tokens, right? Maybe you evolve a Zirconia, so you have 3 tokens. Well, with Serenity Shield, you get to have 4 tokens on like 8 play points. So that's really big because not only are you gonna be able to juice up your Seophon or Sandalphon faster, but you just have like an easier way of dealing with boards that you don't have an answer for, right? So yeah, like of course, Luminous Magus plus Seophon is still gonna be better because of course it's Ward, but yeah, like just having more options is really, really cool. Being able to play like the Seophon earlier is really, really cool. And yeah, like that's just literally a spell that summons 4 knights. So yeah, that's actually quite big. All right, moving on, we have Unkei as well. Unkei Goldbloom, like her effect is very simple, just banishes like a card on the field. While that might be very simple, that is very convenient for Sword because we don't run Odin in this deck, and stuff like Wilbert is really annoying for us to deal with because we don't have a banish. Well, Unkei is now like our banish card. Alright? So this is better than Odin for countering stuff like Wilbert because you also get to banish Coin Wilbert. Right? Because it's a 5 play point card. And not only does it banish, right, you also get a Glittering Gold, which could be a draw, or something that you can remove a token or like make it easier to clear a board with in the future. So yeah, like you don't typically want to super evolve her, but like if you're really low on cards on the hand, maybe you might want to super evolve her, especially if you don't draw like Amelia. So yeah, that's pretty nice. And the last card that I decided to add is Chariot. Now I didn't just add Chariot here for fun. I mean, to be fair, like he is a really fun card, right? You see a lot of these clips, people evolving Chariot and stealing a win, or literally like throwing the lead, killing themselves with this 21 random damage flying all over the place. But if you read the card, it says at the end of your turn, if this follower is not evolved, deal 7 damage to all enemy followers. That's big. 7 damage to the entire enemy field without evolving, and you get a 7/7 body as well. All right. So what is this good for? It's basically good for, you know, like just putting on as a threat when you either don't have a super evolve card or you don't want to commit an evolve yet. Let's say you don't have Save Phone in the hand, you don't have Sandal Phone in the hand, and like the enemy plays something like Valneric, right? Like the 7 mana card from Abyss. Or maybe like they just play an annoying low commitment board that you don't want to use like a super evo for, right? Like you don't want to like trigger the Grimnir Crest for because you don't have payoff. Well, this card solves that because it's literally 7 damage. Of course, the downside of this card though is if you want this effect, if you want to use him like that, you can't evolve him, meaning like you can't trigger the Grimnir Crest with him, and also you can't attack with him unless you have a boot, which this deck also has, because Devotee is just the best early game Swordcraft in the game. Turn 2 that can turn into a turn 3 that could potentially like you know, add more damage potential. Of course, you can add cards like Ardor, right, to make sure that you can punish with Amelia, Luminous Magus. Let's say they can't clear Amelia plus Luminous Magus combo, you can Ardor, so you can like finish the game that way. But yeah, just all up to your choice. You can add Valse, right? You can add more copies of like Grand and Cheetah, right? This is the list that I went for, like just because I want to play more grindy, right? Instead of like trying to rush the game. So yeah, like you can also run a one of Albert if you want to be like cheesy about it, right? So yeah, like Sword has a lot of good cards. You can run a lot of stuff with Evil Sword, but just make sure that, you know, just make sure that you're not like having too many one-offs to the point of your deck not being like consistent anymore. So yeah. All right, so let's get into the new archetypes. All right, the first 3 decks that I talked about were decks that are pre-existing, so yeah, nothing much to talk about that. Let's talk about the new archetypes. So first off, we have Shakdoh. So if you guys don't know what this card does, this basically like forces you to like win a gamble, quote unquote. All right, but of course, we kind of like structured our deck to make this consistent, and it reads, of course, 2 times return your hand to the deck, draw X cards. X is the number of cards you return. Then if you have at least 4 cards with the same cost in your hand, deal 4 damage to all enemies. Alright, so since it does it twice, and if you super evolve it, you can do it twice again. That's 16 damage, right? So how can you guarantee the 16 damage? Number 1, have a hand. If you have 5 cards in the hand, there's a chance that you might like not proc once or twice, right? So I heavily suggest having a hand size of maybe like more than 5, right? More than 5. You don't have to overdo it, of course. You always want to have around 6 and above if you can, right? 6 and above if you can. Even though you're like you have a lot of 2 drops, there's always a chance that it doesn't proc, so you just want to like get rid as much RNG as you can. So like a lot of new cards here actually, like one of them is the Support Wolf. It's a 2 mana 2/2 rush, and it turns into a Bane with barrier and a lot of HP if you enhance 6 it. But for the most part, we use this card because it's a 2 mana 2/2 rush. So yeah, like our game plan here is to chip the enemy like a little bit by playing really aggressively, right? Without losing a lot of the hands. So we have a bunch of cards that are really good for that. So got like a throwaway, of course, can just like print a lot of cards for one card, so you don't have to let go of your hand too much. We have the Rigor of Night Blossom. This draws us 2 card for 2 mana, and if we have 4 of the same cost in the hand, we also get a skeleton. So it's like 2 mana, summon 2 skeletons in 2 different turns, and also draw 2 cards. Not bad, especially since it has a ward. It can prevent stuff like Forte hitting us in the face for fun. Alright? Of course, Screaming and Loading is just a good card. It's not a 2-cost card, but it's just really, really good because it's a deck thinner like card and a removal. So, you know, like it could also potentially draw Shakdoh if you haven't drawn him yet. So it's pretty nice card. I decided to put Argivi as another non-2-cost card because it clears like a lot of boards in the early game, and it can also chip the face if you evolve him, right? Like because you want the enemy to be 16 HP when you drop your Shakdoh, because you can't just like play 2 Shakdohs conveniently because you're shuffling your hand. So you have to be lucky to end up with another Shakdoh in your hand, right? So if possible, you only play 1 Shakdoh and that finishes the game, right? Of course, Fediel is really good. It's a board rife. Like typically, you don't have to evolve. And if you do have to evolve, it's probably a super evolve turn on the enemy's side. So that's not too bad. I added Mukan as well because we need stuff to clear Garyu. We need stuff to clear the Ether board, right? Maybe Norman, stuff like that. Mukan is really good at dealing with that. And since we have Ghost from Survey, that's gonna be a lot easier to do. Right? Just be careful with your shadow count. At worst, probably have to manually evolve it, but yeah, just like manage your shadows properly. But don't worry, you'll have a lot of shadows since you have a lot of skeletons from Minos, Survey, and also like the Rigor of Night Blossom, since the spell itself will give 1 shadow and every skeleton is gonna give you 1 shadow. So that's like 3 shadows with 1 card. Alright, and lastly, like Life Stealer, I added this card as a one-off because this is basically gonna freeze the enemy board. So if you guys don't know what Life Stealer does, it converts like the entire board, including yours, into a skeleton. But whenever a skeleton destroyed, it heals 1. So if 2 skeletons kill each other, right, that's you heal for 2. So it's really hard to deal with for the enemy because of course they want to trade in their skeletons, because like unless they have something like Servi, they probably can't kill you, right? And if they have to trade into your skeleton, that means that they're effectively healing you. And it's also a 7/7 body on the field. So yeah, of course, be careful with stuff like Orcus. But like I said, if they had a board, right? If their board is not empty and you play this, like they can't even like kill you with stuff like Orcus because like they have to heal you in order to do it. So yeah, it's a really, really convenient, like a really, really convenient card to have. I think it's like a card that's kind of slept on day 1, I think. And it's also a counter to Lilantim. Yeah, this can convert Lilantim into a skeleton as well. Alright, so another thing I forgot to mention, Valor of the Night Blossom. This is 2 mana, 5 damage. And it adds another copy of itself into the deck. So having this in your deck means that you can never deck out. You can just never deck out, right? You play this card, and then like you play this card, it puts another copy. You play another one, it adds another copy. You just never deck out. So you can legit play grind out if the enemy is in a post-evo situation that can't really kill you anymore. You just keep removing their stuff, right? And that's like since you're adding more 2 costs in your deck, that means that Shakdoh's effect is gonna be more consistent. So yeah, it's like Gamba, but of course, we construct the deck in a way where the RNG is towards the consistent side at least, right? The animation is really, really good with this card, Barry. If you haven't seen it, try it out. Really fun deck. Alright, so another new archetype. Let's get into Rune. Alright, so for this one, I decided to go with a Spellboost archetype, like of this card, Linkal. So if you don't know what she does, basically, right? She gains a crest, and that crest is whenever you summon a copy of her, it removes 2 max defense from the enemies. And in case you guys didn't know, it could counter stuff like Zoe, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, by the way. Like a Zoe gets countered by this, and if you super evolve her, add 10 copies of Blinkle into your deck. So 10 copies means that this is like 20 max health getting removed. And since it's max health, they can't heal. So yeah, it's like them dying to air. So it's kind of funny, you know. It's kind of funny seeing them die to air. You're not even hitting them. You're just literally playing this card, and they're literally dying to the mere presence of Linko. So yeah. So what cards did I decide to go with? I decided to go with, of course, World of Games. Really good card. And also Tablet. Tablet got nerfed. It has engaged 1 now. It costs a play point to draw now. But you will need this. Just do remember, right? This deck is not easy to pilot. Like, I can pilot it really well myself. Remember to like super evolve this first. I mean, like play the tablet first before super evolving. Yeah, because if you super evolve her first and then you play tablet, all of the copies will be gone. So you have to do it in proper order. Tablet first, and then super evolve this after. All right. So there's like other ways, of course, for you to like draw out the Linkles, not just like this tablet. You can also use Dimension Climb for that. That's why we run the Spell Boost deck, so we can actually like just get the get the Wincon going, like speed run the Wincon. And this is a card that I added to the deck, Arcane Eruption. Hear me out. You're like, okay, what is this card doing here? We don't use this for the draw, right? We don't use this for the clear. We use this to kill our own board. So you might be thinking, okay, why do you want to kill your own board? Because good players will board lock you. If they're a player that's aware of your win con, which they will probably be, like after a few days, you might want to have this as a tech card because you play Linkle, and then you play Linkle, you play a bunch of Blinkles in your board, and the enemy board is already gone. They will probably do this thing where, okay, I'm gonna pass, and they're like 8 max HP. You play Arcane Corruption, not only can consuming an Earthright potentially free up 1 more slot on the board, but it prevents them from board locking you, and you're like, yo, surprise, I actually have more board space, and then you can play more copies of her. So yeah, like a pretty fun deck. I suggest to try it. Like, there's not a lot of new cards here besides really the Linkle, but since there's an entirely new type of Wincon, it's gonna feel fresh. And yeah, hope you guys have fun with this deck as well. Alright, so Odd Haven. Okay, now on day 1, I'm gonna be for real, I thought this was a meme deck. I really thought it was a meme deck. So what does Odd Haven do? Right, let's go read the most important card in this deck first. Cookie Shiro. Alright, Cookie Shiro. It's kind of a funny name. Alright, so Funfair, gain crest and return 2 random cards from your hand to deck, and then draw 2 cards. You might be saying, what the hell is this? So it'll make sense pretty soon. If you read the crest during your turn, alright, during your turn, whenever you draw a 1 or a 3, a 5 cost card, basically like odd cards, you summon either a Fox of Purity, which is a 1/3 ward, or a Holy Falcon, which is a 2/2 storm. Alright? And if you draw an even card, you summon that for the enemy instead. So of course, to work around that, you fill your deck with 1/3/5s. So yeah, as you can see over here, the only cards that are not 1/3/5 is John and Kokishiro. Now, John is over here, of course, to buff all the tokens that you'll be printing here for free. It's funny, you just keep drawing cards, and then like the cards are like what? From amulets, right? Like from low cost like spells, or like like literally free. Basically, you get like all that summons, and then you play John with it, and you have a lot of value. Alright? So you use Desperate Shrine Mouse over here to to not only like progress your win con or trigger the crest, but also as this is like your turn 5 board wipe. Right? I thought this card was pretty bad, but like since you can set up this card with multiple cards, like for example this one can proc this proc the passive twice, deal 1 damage to all enemy followers, right? Like she already does an initial 1 damage, and if you evolve her, you draw another card and procs it again. And if you have any like amulets set up, like the Sanctuary, in like the Resolve of the Mist Bloom, and like a De La Feel, if you have any like a card like that ready to be popped, she can literally clear any turn 5 board that the enemy may print. And another card that I added in the deck is Salefa, and the reason why is, in case that you don't draw her, right, at least you have an answer to wide boards, let's say an enemy Zirconia, stuff like that, because you don't run Blinding Fate because it's a 4 mana card. Since you don't run Blinding Fate, you don't have a lot of answers to wide. And since you don't have a lot of answers to wide, yeah, that's like my solution, taking in at least a 1 off Salefa. If you want to run 2, that's fine. But the reason why I run 1 is because I don't wanna like thin out the main win con of this deck. Alright, so Grimnir, I added a 1 copy as well because, like I said, I probably want to keep hitting face. And if I super evolve, yeah, I don't want any tokens, like I don't want to be like distracted by any tokens that can potentially like kill me back, right? Especially the Mega Lorcas with, like, you know, Dragon being popular and all that. So yeah. Alright, so like the rest of the cards here are literally just for stalling or progressing the win con, right? So you clear boards, you heal up, you try to, you know, use your evolves very efficiently. If you can, use your evolves on stuff like Gilnelis, stuff like Tico, right? Like you don't want to evolve like just for fun. Like you don't want to evolve her just for putting in pressure on the face. Yeah, you don't have to rush this. You don't have to rush with this deck. Remember, your win con is Cookie Shiro. Once you get this, now you can like start thinking about like drawing a line where you evolve hit face, right? Because suddenly you have a lot of value both offensively and defensively. So yeah, I know this might not be the type of deck a lot of people might play, but in my opinion, this has to be the funnest archetype that they came up with. And I'm glad that they did it for Havencraft, because typically their playstyle is on quote unquote, right? An opinion, of course, like a boring playstyle, right? This playstyle is like a lot more dynamic, a lot more fun, a lot more RNG too, though, of course, but yeah. Alright, so for the last deck that we'll be covering, will be covering a Tempo Puppet Imari deck. So I don't know what to call this deck. I'm gonna be for real. I just call it like a tempo deck because I literally have a lot of early game cards to take over the board, and I'm also going to play Sloughs. Let's say I'm out of tempo and I can't like pressure more. I could just like play Sloughs on tree, or if you can play this on curve a lot better. So see, there's a lot of text, right? There's a lot of text. So hear me out. Just play him on tree. It's an ambush. Of course, it's gonna be easier for this thing to survive if you know, like if there's no evolving yet. So if you read over here, at the start of your turn, activate a random ability that hasn't been activated yet. You can reduce the cost of your cards by 1. You can like get +2/+2, so becomes harder to kill, or you can heal for 3. So any poke damage that you get for playing a 3 mana do nothing, like probably gets healed back by this. So yeah, there's like basically like this is just all good effects. And yeah, what do you do then? Like it's just a 3 mana 0/2, right? You play it, then what? It gets one of these effects, then what? Well, a lot of things can be done with this card. So first off, if you get the reduce like cost by 1, you play a lot of 1 cost cards. And if you manage to get that, you, of course, you get to play a lot of cards. And that's really good for your tempo, for getting back the tempo. Of course, another thing is +2/+2. If anything stuck, better. But if nothing stuck, at least she doesn't like this hamster dog looking thingy doesn't die to AoE, or doesn't die easily to AoE. Maybe die to something like a Graningita, but yeah. And of course, like I said, the tree heals really good if you're getting poked by, like, if you're getting poked, if you're out of tempo. And if you evolve this thing, this louse, you gain a crest, and the enemy gains a crest. Now, the effects that I just read, the exact opposite of what they were for you. So instead of healing, it's dealing 3. Instead of like +2, it's -2. And it also increases their hand by 1. But so if you manage to time this crest in a way that it inconveniences them really hard, let's say their best turn 5 play is a glade. If this like effect happens, suddenly they can't glade your board. So if that's their only answer in their hand, suddenly they can't play, right? Let's say this crest gets timed during, I don't know, the Garyu turn of a dragon player. Suddenly they can play Garyu. So that's the reason why, that like I like running this card, because it just creates a lot of chaos. It ruins the enemy lines, and in fact, the fact that they have to respect this means that, the fact that they have to respect this card is pretty funny because it's like a 5 damage evolve. Yeah, this is like a 5 damage evolve, because if you evolve it without the +2, it's like 2 damage to the face, right? If you get the +2, it's 4 damage to the face, and this is 3 damage. So it's like a super evolved. It's like a super evolved storm hit face, right? From just a normal evo, and it can set up lethal, after you take over the board in the early game or regain back the tempo. And how do you regain back the tempo? Well, this is another card that can regain back the tempo, Imari, right? So first select a card in your hand. You can use a puppet for that, for something convenient, because you make puppets. You can just use that as discard fodder. You draw a spell, and if you evolve her, whenever you play a spell, you summon a 3/3 rush. So this tomato potato looking thingy, right? So the spells that you're gonna use is like the Jewel Drop, which draws you a card, and this thing. This thing is OP. Sincerity of the Jewel Drop. This is OP for every single artifact. Hey, this is literally a 5 out of 5 card. This is a 1 mana transform, right? Since it's 3/8, like it turns them into a 3/3. Suddenly it dies to Gamma. Suddenly it dies to a lot of spells. Like suddenly, like it dies to an enhanced puppet. You get me? So you can convert. It's basically like a 1 mana destroy if paired with a lot of Portalcraft stuff. So yeah. Of course, you finish off the game with Odin and Orcus, and if the game goes really late, you can maybe play a Bubs to make it easier for you to end the game. But of course, your end game won't be as easy as like something like Egg. Against Egg though, you still have a chance of winning, because you can just convert their eggs into these things, right? Yeah, this can target amulets as well. You want to deny draw? Play Sincerity of Jewel Drop. You want to kill Wilbert? Play Sincerity of Jewel Drop. You want to like remove an egg and you don't have Odin in your hand? Sincerity of Jewel Drop. This card just fixes so many of your issues that a deck like this can exist. So yeah. Alright. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Like that's gonna be it for all the decks that I made so far in like the first few days of the new set. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Like, hope you guys enjoyed the new set as well. It took me a bit to actually make this these decks, just because of the fact that whatchamacallit, there's just so much stuff going on that you don't even know what to take for. But I think a safe bet to like just keep in mind when making your decks is be ready for stuff like Intimidate, and be ready to deal with a lot of early game aggression because of the early game cards that we got printed. All right, it's a lot of fun because of the world, like because like it's like everybody has access to draw now, so it never feels like, oh, if I play a card it's bad because I'm gonna run up resources. It doesn't feel like that anymore. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. What's your favorite deck so far in the expansion? And hope you guys have a nice day. Sorry for the long video. Like I said, like I really wanted to make one like a long video that covers every craft instead of just like milking multiple. I will do that, of course. I will do that, of course. I will highlight gameplay for like every single craft for the foreseeable future. But for now, right, like this is maybe something that you can use as a template for like whatever deck that you want to craft this new expansion. So yeah. Have a nice day, everybody. Have a nice new year. I'ma see you in the next one. Peace. Bye bye.